Prevention strategies focus on specific drugs or substances in general.
Let me start with my basic answer. I think a combination of both is the optimal way to go. Let me start with the case for the general approach. I've got 3 reasons why that approach makes sense. One would be the knowledge that all drugs of abuse are commonly impacted by the hijacking of our brain's pleasure center. This is an important principle to include in prevention curriculum. It's a common feature of psychoactive substances that they all impact and overwhelm the brain's reward pathway system. More specifically, this includes how drugs will increase and overexcite dopamine neurotransmitter activity, and this leads to a cascading of problems that are biological based, but then contribute to the individual wanting to keep using and increasing their craving. And then things escalate, and initial use can become maintained use and lead to dependence and problems. So this principle is important for prevention, but it also is a principle that spans all psychoactive substances. A second reason is that the teenage years is a very susceptible period for initiating and using all drugs of abuse. Data from the United States shows how initiation of use can begin for some as early as age 12 and 13, but you see a lot of initiations start to escalate in the middle teenage years. And various drugs will be a drug of initiation for any given teenager. In America, nicotine, alcohol, cannabis, in some order, is usually a pattern found among teenagers. But the importance is that many substances fall into this initiation basket, and thus it's very relevant to talk about drugs in general and this high-risk period during adolescence. And then the third point I want to make in support of the general principle is that there also is a lot of similarity of the risk and protective factors that are linked to substance use. And there's very little, although some, but very little specificity. So if you look at common risk factors and common protective factors, you see that they will drive use of substances across the board with very little specificity. So if a teenager has a lot of risk factors and minimal protective factors, they're at high likelihood to use many different substances. So those are 3 reasons why the general approach makes sense, but there are 2 points I want to make to advance the argument that it can help to include a specific focus within evidence-based and impactful and effective prevention programs. One point to make is that if you look at outcome research of well-studied prevention programs, you see that many of them include content about specific drugs. So this is an important research-based reason to go down this path. And then there's the implementation science and the research from that body of work that supports the notion of topical substance-specific issues because it improves and strengthens the significance and relevance of the prevention messages. That's quite important to get teenagers engaged in the prevention content and activities. And to help do that, it makes sense to bring in topical issues. For example, vaping is an important topical issue these days, since that's getting to be more popular among young people. And so discussing how the tobacco industry is using some of the prior tactics to lure young people to vape is a valuable prevention message. One way to do that is to talk about all the different flavors and how these different flavors are very attractive and can lure young people towards the vaping habit. Other specific topics that can make sense in many communities is to address the cannabis issue. In the United States, almost half of states have legalized it for adults, and so it's getting to be part of the retail landscape. And then the opioid crisis and the danger of fentanyl and other opioid drugs is also very important. So these are specific drugs. They are topical nowadays. They might not have been as topical 20 years ago, and maybe won't be as relevant an issue downstream. But to hook teenagers to accept and learn and benefit from good prevention programming, using strategies that are sensible, rational, based in reality, but also bring meaning and relevance to the work, is only a plus. So my big answer is a combination or a hybrid strategy, I think, is indicated. That can include basic principles as core content, and then an idea that you can flex in specific topics that are warranted by local issues, trends, and where the new science is taking us.